Alright, let me set the context for the video. In this video, we have Siong. Siong is the co-founder and CTO at Jupiter. Jupiter is one of the biggest DEX aggregators in the world, probably the biggest one right now. They're primarily on Solana. They let people swap assets from one asset to another. For example, if you want to convert your Solana to USDC or vice versa, and you'd want to do all of this on chain, you use Jupiter for it in some form or fashion. Even if you're swapping via a wallet like Phantom or Backpack, under the hood, your requests get routed via Jupiter. They've built this very solid PMF of price discovery where they're sitting on top of a bunch of dexes. Meteora is a dex, Orca is a dex. They find the best prices for a specific asset on that dex and let you swap. Of course, they take a fee in the middle. How big are they exactly? Well, in the last 24 hours, I'm seeing this right in front of my screen. They did around $1.8 billion in volumes. That means $1.8 billion were swapped on their platform or via APIs on Jupiter. And if you take like a humble cut for them, I think the number is around 0.05%. That amounts to a lot of money. If I'm doing the math right, I don't know, somewhere between $500,000 to $1 million in the last 24 hours. So it's a great product to build as long as the chain gets a lot of volumes. And if you're the biggest DEX aggregator or even a DEX on that chain, it's a good time to be alive in these markets. In this pod, we'll go through their journey. How did they start Jupiter? What did the initial version of Jupiter look like? Highly technical. What are the challenges that they faced? What does Jupiter V6 look like? And how is it different from the very first versions of Jupiter? We're also opening 2 bounties. The first one is to build a payment gateway on top of Solana. And the way you're going to integrate Jupiter here is payment gateway needs to allow any token as an input. That means if you want to sell a t-shirt, people should be able to pay you in, let's say, Trump coin. And you need to immediately convert the Trump coin to USDC. If you're ever creating a payment gateway, a t-shirt seller would want to get paid in USDC. But it's not necessary that the other party has USDC, whoever is buying the t-shirt. So it builds like a clean way for someone to pay via a Trump token or Solana and the merchant to get paid via USDC. That's the first one. There are a bunch of technical challenges here. Specifically, deposits and withdrawals are generally very hard. If someone is paying you, figuring out which merchant they're trying to pay in the end, hitting the webhook of the merchant and letting the merchant know that the successful transaction has been done, that's a little challenging. And of course, the second challenge here is making sure as soon as the money hits you, you're able to convert it almost immediately to USDC. If you don't do that, and there's a very big price impact, if the price of the Trump token drops by a lot, then you won't be able to pay your end merchants in USDC. The second problem statement is a slightly more sophisticated trading tool on top of Jupiter. I think Jupiter already has a bunch of these things, but for now, the platform needs to support limit orders. That means you can place not just an immediate order to buy Solana, but you can place a limit order that says, I want to buy Solana as soon as it drops to, let's say, $150. And slightly more sophisticated tools like taking profit and stop losses. So a user should be able to come to your platform, lock in some USDC, let's say 150 USDC. And they should be able to put certain conditions that I want to buy Solana as soon as it hits 150 USDC. And I want to sell it as soon as it reaches 200. And I also want to stop my loss in case it drops below $125. So this would involve a bunch of smart contracts where you need to lock the user tokens, talking to oracles to get price discovery and understand what the price of Solana is at a certain point, and making sure the transactions actually happen whenever the price targets are hit. You'll find a link in the description to both of these bounties. I would urge you to try them out and make a submission. The total price pool of these bounties is around $800. With that context, let's get into the pod.
How do you make these product decisions on what should get built, right? And also, like, what does a typical SDL, the software development cycle, look like?
So back then, the building process is very different. Like, we were trying to be more conservative because of the...
You run Fly.io and you, of course, ran out of compute. So you moved to AWS where the bills were really high. Now you're running, at 100K a month bill. That's all that you're burning on compute for the execution layer.
I mean, and if you think about this, 100K a month, we are serving almost 20,000 requests per second. 20 to 30,000 requests per second.
That's very cool.
The code is not open source. How does that work?
Everything that we do on the...
Have you guys tackled that problem, and what were some of the obstacles you faced along the way? As like you mentioned, since you guys were not with native dashboards.
Yeah. I mean, it's actually very good questions, right? If you think about it, like, the very first Jupiter aggregator is a very simple concept. I think we are on version 6 right now of the contract. Then we realized it's like, okay, like it works pretty well, but...
Cool. Let me set the context a little bit. So, Siong, we're doing this podcast series with a bunch of technical folks. So like usually CTOs of companies trying to understand, the engineering principles, how did they build what they build, what were the technical challenges in building, a product like this. I think Jupyter is probably a great example of, a highly technical product. So we'll take that in that direction.
Hello. Welcome to another episode of OnlyDevs Podcast. Today we have with us Siong from Jupyter. Jupyter is one of the most widely used applications on Solana. I think to an extent where it's probably a fast statement to say that Jupyter is the homepage of Solana, like Google is the homepage of the internet. So welcome, Siong. Welcome to the OnlyDevs Podcast.
Inviting me.
Great. I think to kick things off, it would be great if you could give us a high-level overview of what all Jupyter offers at the moment. I think everyone knows the swap aggregator, but are there other products that Jupyter is actively working on?
Yes. So at the beginning, I think has been slightly more than 4 years right now. We launched as a swap aggregator, the aggregating all the AMMs and different order books on Solana. Then after that, we have, based on the swap product, we launched on limit order, DCA, VA. So all these are the products that built around the swap product. We also have our future product, the perpetual product as well, which is very different than the aggregator. It's also very different than the typical order book based future. So the way it works is that you have the LP there, the LP, the JLP side, like giving the liquidity for the traders to trade on. Then you accrue fees to the what we call the JLP pool. Then now we also have the mobile app as well, and obviously April, another product for the people who are in the trenches to trade on fast and at the speed that they want.
Got it.
Yeah, just jumping right into it, right? Like there is like literally quite almost a dozen different products that are in in the buffet of options that Jupyter has, to an extent where Jupyter is a DeFi super app, right? So I'm really curious to understand how you guys approach building products. Like, how do you make these product decisions on what should get built, right? And also, like, what does the typical SDL, the software development cycle, look like?
The team is much bigger right now. I think a year ago when the tokens went live, we have about 15 people. So back then the building process is very different, right? Like we just based on, like we were trying to be more conservative because of the, bear market, all these different things. Like back then, most of the time is being spent on like, okay, like how do we conserve, resources instead of like spending doubling our own like products. So most of the time it's just like, look at products that we think will be helpful in the Solana ecosystem and things that we think can do better. But obviously bear markets can be helpful as well because a lot less noise in the market. People can be more focused on building products. So I would say like over the year, like especially 2023, like after FTX went down late 2022, the whole year of 2023 is just basically a very small team, heads down building product. During that period, that's when most of the products came out from. The future product, the perpetual JLP pool, like the APLA, DCA, VA, and limit order. So all those products came out around the time. And if you look at how we do it, right, it's like a DCA, VA, and limit order. Technically it's not very complicated product. Just like it's whatever we build on top of the swap aggregator, because we can help you define the best price to execute on. Then using that routing engine, we basically build limit order, DCA, VA. So those efforts are very I wouldn't say like very high efforts, but it's mostly low efforts, but we can see pretty high reward from there. But obviously at the time, we also feel like there's no good future or perpetual product on Solana. That's why we decided to spend more time building that product. I would say most of the 2023, most products are built with just one or two people. And based on the resources that we have, just launch fast and move fast. Yeah. Obviously now, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, please continue. Please continue.
Yeah, so now like then 2024 happened, right? It's like meme token, then now AI tokens, it's like all these different things. I was just sharing like earlier this afternoon, just like we went from seeing like like maybe less than 10 new tokens a day to like now what 5 to 10,000 new tokens a day, right? Like it's a very different scale and very different thing right now. Along the way, our team has to scale with the demand that we are getting. We also see our user base from like 50,000. I mean, I was just looking at the number of Jupiter that's coming out. We have to reward 10x more users right now compared. Like basically, like the first Jupiter was users that have been using Jupiter for 3 years before the token was live, and this Jupiter is basically like the one whole last year of activities, and it's 10x more users, right? Like 10x more users than the 3 years before combined. So you can look at the scale, not just Solana. I mean, not just Jupiter, right? Solana in general, right? Like obviously the team need to grow together with it as well. We have to be more careful on like everything. Last time, if things go down, people we can really tolerate it. But now it's like we have a lot more users. Like we have to be engineering have to be more responsible on like what to ship and be careful on what to ship as well, because like even small change that we make might affect, even though it might be like 10 users or 20, like 100 users, but they might complain. Like, because the way to think about it is like, okay, like 100 users are not using it, like fuck it, we can just close it, like turn it off. But there's always one person who is using it. Like one good example is like we end off WSO swapping like 2 weeks ago, but immediately we have to turn it off because like even though it's a feature that like 99% of users are not using it, but that 1% of users will be like, okay, like yo, like why do you turn it on? Like this is the only thing I use here, right? Which is very uncommon for a typical user. Of course, not many people use WSO to trade and keep it in WSO without unwrapping it, right? So that's one example. Then obviously product now can get more complex. So something like App Pro can launch, because if you look at App Pro, it's not just a simple product. You have like, using swap to swap tokens, obviously. But you need the data on the graph, you need like all the holders data. You need to show like, potential people rugging. Then we have to rebuild the whole real-time chart on the UI as well. Like it's a much more complex product. But luckily we have the help from two teams that we bought, Solana FM and also CoinHawk. They help us to build the product. Yes. Yeah.
Well, it's like, I think you can significantly see that in terms of the maturity of the product, and also like the maturity of the team kind of like goes hand in hand, right? So there are like a lot of developers who are, would be tuning into this podcast. So it would be interesting from their perspective to hear about what do you look for when you onboard new members into your team. Like what are the qualities that are extremely important to you as, with the culture of the Jupiter and like, or rather what it takes to be successful at Jupiter?
I'll say like in the early days, it's like, like we have a bunch of like product engineers, so like people who just can build product fast. But now at this stage, we're actually looking at both right now. People can build product fast. At the same time, people can scale product fast as well. And they really can like, come in and fix problems. Like, like at the like really expert at the problem we are solving. Yeah.
I would love to dive a little bit deeper into this. What is the exact tech stack when you say product engineer that's joining the team?
So product engineers means, we don't have product managers. Most products driven by the engineer. So the way we do it is that like, if you're product engineers means like you really understand, you're not just the user of the product yourself. You have to know, okay, this is something that, makes sense. And, I I really want to see this product to be in the market. Then you will build it up for yourself and also for the people that you think will be useful. That's how limit order, DCA all came out from. It's basically like, okay, our engineer has been doing this, like, limit order with their own script, like using Jupyter API. He was like, okay, let's just put it on the website, so that other people can use the same script doing the same thing as well, right? So I would say that's one type of like what I mean by product engineers. It might not be the best as like, just doing contracting, but they understand everything from the end user all the way to like contract developing, right? So they can do everything. Same thing for our routing engines. Our routing engine was like, multiple version as well. The first version was like everything on the front end. We crawl the whole we call RPC, get all the data, because back then, maybe 100 pools or 200 pools, everything can happen like quite easily on the front end. Then we pull the data, we find you the best route. But obviously from the JavaScript front end, then we have to move it to the Rust backend. Even for the Rust backend, right? I would say like for the original team, none of us are native Rust engineers, right? But now, like, we are at the stage that like, when I say really deep expert, what I mean is like, you might not even know Solana contract. You might not even know like, JavaScript front end. You might not even know like, what user like use the product for. But you can go into the backend to really optimize the whole backend to be much faster, because you have spent like you have years of experience on like tuning like a really like high skill, like high performance routing engine. Yeah.
Got it. Amazing. So I'm curious to understand, to go to, like you mentioned, right? Like for example, you were doing in the initial days, you would just make RPC call directly from the front end to aggregate the routes and present it to the user, and going from that to an API like system where you have your own Rust backend. That probably also means that you have to run a fairly large infrastructure where, as the number of tokens keep growing, the number of liquidity pools keep growing, it's like the data pipeline that you need to have to index all of these events as and when these events happen. It's like a tremendous amount of, that's a tremendous engineering task, right? I would love to hear more about like how you guys tackled that problem, and what were some of the obstacles you face along the way, and like you mentioned, since you guys were not with native Rust folks.
Yeah, it's actually very good questions, right? If you think about it, like our phase of like growing the products, right? The very first Jupyter aggregator is a very simple contract. I think we are on version 6 right now of the contract. But the very first one is just like contract is one thing, front end is one thing. Or the front end, or we call it the routing engine, is that the very first version is like, okay, you come to the Jupyter website, we actually call RPC of all the pools that you have. For example, if you try to route from, like you SOL to USDC, right? Then we basically look at all the pools that support SOL and USDC, download the data that we want, and calculate it on the go for you, all on the UI, on JavaScript, and like nothing even on the backend. Then realize that it's like, okay, like it works pretty well, but a lot of time the data is duplicated and all these things, like like front end, you have to deal with like sometimes you call RPC too frequent, then the user get banned, like IP get restricted, rate limited, all these different things, right? Then we move the JavaScript front end code to backend to start serving in from the backend. Like someone called some basically is calling API instead of like everything is being on the front end. So that solved the problem a little bit. It's always like this. The latency slowly go up. Okay, now we need to fix some problem. Then it go down again. Then like more pools, more route, more whatever. Then the latency start going up again. So then from the JavaScript backend serving with API, then we realize that okay, like it's hitting a bottleneck right now. So suddenly all JavaScript engineers become Rust engineers. So we all have to learn how to build a Rust service from that. Like it has to like start doing like at the very first version of the Rust engine, it's actually quite dumb. So we just keep pulling the state, because there's still not many pools. We just it's still a tight loop. Like how many pools that we have to call. I think it was like 200 something pools. So for us to refresh a pool take like almost less than a second. It's basically how fast the Solana slot is being hit. So we don't have to worry about that problem at all. So we don't have to worry about steal problem, data is being steal or whatever. So we can just keep doing a tight loop and keep refreshing the data. Just keep doing it. Then every course come in, so that we can save the RPC call to all this RPC, because we have a local cache on the server. But good thing is that we are using service like fly.io. We could have the same instances around the world. So we have, I think at one point we have like 14 locations or serving out our requests, right? It was scaling quite well until like one day we realized that like, okay, there are too many pools right now. A tight loop takes a couple, like, more than a second. So we might miss slots and data might get steal, right? So that's not great. So we have to turn this whole thing into a real-time update directly from the validator. So when data change, we immediately update the mempool, right? So there's another engineering change as well. It took us a while, but we got there. Then now we have this real-time engine that data is coming in, like we can stream up real-time update into the pools in the memory. Then code be directly code from that. Okay, then you thought the problem is solved, like you don't have to start worrying about problem. Then okay, Fly.io, we are scaling so fast that they ran out of machines for us. They were like, okay, like in certain regions, like for example, Singapore, even some of the European regions that they have, just like, oh, okay, like because we're serving so many requests right now, we need 20 engines. They're like, okay, we only have at the biggest instance, we only have like 5. There's no more instances that we can give you. Okay, shit. Like now we need to start thinking about like how to do this, right? Then we have to start moving a lot of our infra into AWS. Even on AWS, right? At one point, it was scaling so fast that AWS don't have the machine for us as well. They were like, okay, like this region, we run out of the biggest instance. Then we have to start realizing, like we have to start thinking like, okay, maybe the problem is, we are spending too much money on like getting expensive CPU, machines, that we could just get someone who really look into the code and optimize for the CPU. Then we have this guy, like, brilliantly came in. I think it's like 2 weeks of work, like cut our machine from like I think it's like 192 X machines on AWS into like something that like we can run with like 32 CPU machines. That was amazing, right? This guy like basically saved our bill by 75% a month. But just come in and just do. We were paying like almost like $500,000 in the AWS bill every month. Then this guy came in, like cut our bill to like 100,000. I was like, okay, like how much salary you want? Like, give us. I don't know, paying you just to make sure that like all these things are happening. But yeah, brilliant guy who came in, like talking, like he doesn't even know Solana, how Solana works, and I just came in, like look at the code, and said, okay, like I think this is not right. This algorithm could be optimized. Yeah, but for him, it's like I think it took him two weeks to 1 month. Basically fix everything. Our bill went from like $500,000 to like 100,000 a month. Yeah. And like now we can use a smaller machine as well. Then like AWS has more machine for the smaller instances compared to like large instances. Yeah. So with that, basically multiple iterations, but the team still remain pretty small. 5, like let's say like 5 to 6, like 4 to 5 people right now. And this guy is not even working on it anymore. It's just like basically went in, I look at the unoptimized code, fix it. Now he moved onto other projects. He's working on other things right now. Yeah, and it's just like I doesn't even know. Like it's Anna. I don't care. Like, I just want to like fix interesting problem. Like it's amazing to see how like people talk about 10x engineer. This is the guy that has been talking about, right? Yeah, and last.
Are there any like hard problems that you're dealing with now that could be like, an open invitation that we could put out to the listeners of this podcast?
I would say like, even the engine right now, like can be, I think, there are poppy places that can be optimized. And, we just need people to go in to really see, what are the places that like, even algorithm wise, even like, like, because sometimes it's just no longer just an algorithm problem, right? Like for others, best price is not just the best price anymore, because best price can come with many different factors. Like I can find you the best price, but if you are late at executing it, then the best price might disappear. So for someone who are on the website, right, you can see the best price, but usually it can be on a shallow pool. If someone swap the best price away from you, then your next swap will be like, you will hit the seepage, will be a very awful experience. So now it's actually more like a multi-factors problems right now, because best price is just one factor. Then we have to make sure that, like, it's a deep liquidity pool. That's one factor. Then we have to make sure that, seepage is not being set too high. Obviously, you can set like 20% seepage, but you might get sandwiched by the NBV, right? So we have to optimize the seepage as well. Then at the same time, we have to optimize priority fees, because, like, if the chain is not like hot right now, why would you pay like, high priority fees? So that's like, now it's, I would say that's why I wouldn't say we are offering the best price, because now the problem can be more complicated than what it is, right? Now, I would just say that we offer the best possible executing price out there. Yeah. Which means not just the best, like sometimes can be the best price, sometimes, it might not be the best at the current moment, but we make sure that, you can land, you can actually swap, and you don't have to worry about seepage, you don't have to worry about too high a fees, you don't have to worry about MEV. Yeah.
Got it. This is super interesting. So to summarize the journey, you started off with a completely client-side implementation, hitting a lot of RPCs, ran into a bunch of problems. So you moved to a JavaScript backend, where all these things moved to a backend. You would do that, and then JavaScript became a bottleneck, so you moved to Rust. Once you did that, you were on Fly.io, and you, of course, ran out of compute. So you moved to AWS, where the bills were really high. And eventually someone came, optimized it, and now you're running, at 100K a month bill. That's all that you're burning on compute for the execution layer.
Yeah, I mean, and if you think about this, 100K a month, we are serving almost 20,000 requests per second, 20 to 30,000 requests per second. Yeah.
That's very cool. And so if I understand this correctly, you're saying the core system of Jupyter that's aggregating the swaps is a Web2 system deployed on AWS.
Yeah.
Oh, very interesting. I don't know why I assumed that you're doing on-chain, like you have an on-chain contract that's figuring out.
No. So to find the route is all off chain, but to executing the route is on chain. Yeah.
Got it. Of course, that makes sense. Very cool. And is this engine open source?
No, the engine is not open source. Yeah. Even the contract is not open source.
Yeah. Got it. So if someone wants to, get involved in Jupyter, as Sheikh mentioned, like what is the problem that you're currently facing? The motivation behind that was, can someone from the community come and, solve something for you? That could be, some extra function that you need in the Solana Web3.js or the Rust SDK. Any problem that, someone comes, for example, 500K, 200K bill is a great problem that someone came and solved.
Yeah.
Is there something similar that's open source that people, from the community can work on?
I don't know. So far, I mean, I feel like the documentation alone is like, is something that a lot of people can work on. Yeah. It really help to improve like how we can do the stuff, Obviously, a lot of people just say that like, oh, I think your thing is not open source, like how can, like, we have all the front end code, like the client code is all open source that, people can come in to contribute. But at the same time, it's like, like engineers these days are very interesting as well. Like, I'm not even sure the engineers say, okay, I check GPT, like it doesn't really tell me how to do it. Like, how can I do it? But that's like, okay, like how can anyone help you if you don't even know, like, the basic stuff, right? Like, I think, to be honest, I think ChatGPT is helpful, like for sure. It makes you more productive. But at the same time, if you just rely on it, it's like, like they don't even read documentation anymore. They're just like, okay, like I asked ChatGPT, it doesn't tell me this. So like, I guess like I'm here asking you the question right now. I was like, okay, it's fine.
That's fair.
And I feel like a lot of times, performance one thing, right? Obviously, like I feel like, if you put it out, someone might contribute to it. But in the end of the day, it's like, I'm not sure how many people will, because I do believe that unless there's certain incentive, it's very hard for people to do it unless, like people used to show off, like I will contribute to MySQL to make MySQL fast, right? But at the same time, it's like, I feel like routing engine and crypto is very different, because the incentive is not about bragging right anymore. The incentive is all about how you can make money. If you open source the engine, right, then they will probably optimize it and just for them to use. Like they don't want to give the alpha to any people because it's so fast that you can immediately get profit from it. Like why should I share the work with other people? Like last time on MySQL, like Postgres or anything, it's like there's no obvious way to to make money from it. The only way you can make money from it is like you contribute to it, then you get a job offer from like some big company to ask you to keep working on it, right? Then they're willing to pay you like, you know, a couple $100,000 a month because you're so good at the one library that they depend on, right? Like now it's just like, okay, like I have a routing engine right now, I build it up, I open source it, they can come in, like, you know, optimize it and, you know, get a lot of gain from it without even sharing it.
That makes a lot of sense.
So one thing that on the topic, right? One thing that I'm curious on is that there is Jup DAO, right? So there is a token that's like it's working towards decentralizing Jupiter itself as a protocol. So now with how is that? How does that work in the sense that, for example, the code is closed. The code is not open source. Like there's one specific team that has like write access to these repos, and then there is like a DAO that is, you know, about decentralizing the protocol, right? So how do you think about this, or how do you approach?
I would say it's very different, right? You know, like you know, like there's no word that like, you know, we can just call it a DAO, then we all just leave the job and not care about it. Like just say that everything's open source, and like we don't run the AWS, we don't run everything, right? Like I would think about it as like, you know, we are the, you know, we run the engine, we still, you know, manage the whole thing. The DAO basically own the tokens. They can do whatever with the token. Obviously, everything incentive is being driven by, you know, like or everything that we do on the activities, you know, they drive to the token. Yeah.
Got it. Awesome. So slightly going back to the previous integration.
But to answer your questions, like we want to open source out some of the stuff as well. Like for example, our IFQ contract is open source. It's just that certain things that we don't think that we should open source. And you know, if the DAO decided to like, okay, let's open source this, we don't mind open source it ourselves. But I'm pretty sure people understand like these are the things that if you open source, like, you know, it will actually drive the economical value down more than what it is today. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. I also follow the argument. So one thing that I'm curious about is like when moving, for example, you mentioned there were only a finite number of liquidity pools to deal with, and then from there it went. There were many more. There were many more, right? And also there are newer and newer protocols that keep getting launched every day. So how do you make sure that they are also, you know, integrated into your system? Because, you know, when you execute this content, there is, for example, especially when there is no ideal, there is no type bytecode or whatever.
So we do share some like idea of like how they can integrate. Like we have like a sample code out there, you know, like we do it, we open up the radio integration, we open source out the you know, like Orca Whirlpool integrations. There are a lot of different examples you can look at. And we also wrote like a simple example for people to take a look at as well. But most of the time, right, it's just like we are very behind. Like to be honest, even we open source this thing up, right, we're still very behind on implementations. Or sometimes you look at it, right, the problem is not just us, because if we look at the code, right, like this new protocol, like, you know, they are writing contract. They don't really use check. Like, you know, it's like, okay, like obvious overflow problem is right there in the contracts. It's like, okay, like, you know, like do you really not care about this thing? And you want us to put this code into our library so that like this whole thing will just crash. Like, you know, we have to, sometimes we just have to like obviously you can just say like, okay, this part of the code won't overflow, it's fine, but like, it's very hard for us to tell them. Then they have like, then we have to give like blanket statements like, yo, like just you check math everywhere, right? You know, I think it's unfair, but at the same time, it's like, you know, it's like, I feel like it's a way to just save everyone time. Instead of you like arguing me, it's like, okay, this part won't overflow. Then I find one part that's overflow. Then it's, oh, sorry, like, you know, like I will fix this part. Then I was like, am I going to be the guy who just review every part of your code and like, you know, like tell you like what is happening, what is like the problem, and like every single thing, right? Then
and also user probably doesn't know where it came from, right? They're just going to blame you or something.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. We are the one who took all the reputation risk. Like, they still care like what this new whatever XMM, like, like is routing my engine too, right? And we have to make sure that and we also have to make sure that whatever code they say is quoting the number, is actually matching the exact number that we can throw on, right? If I start integrating an AMM, say, okay, always tell me a better code, but when the price execute is always the worst code, then it's like, okay, something is wrong here, right? So is it because the code that you've code me, give me is wrong, or you modified contract, differently? Yeah. A lot of people will blame us, you guys are very slow at integrating, but they don't really understand what is the problem, what is the, thing as well. Then we also have people come to us, it's if you don't integrate us, we will die. It was do you see the problem there? What is, should I even integrate ALM that would die soon? Or then basically us putting this in the thing, then you might rug as well, all these different problems, right? Then it's it just become a very circular problem. Then they start blaming us, but if you don't integrate us, we will die, we are whatever, we're just two engineers, living on ramen, whatever. If you don't do this, we will we won't be getting any tractions, we won't be making any money. I was I'm pretty sure you don't know how swappers, you need to get a lot more volume to actually make money and stuff like that. At the same time, it's not very convincing to tell me that you might just shut it down next month, because you don't get volume on it, right? How can we even help at this point, right? Yeah.
How was I'm curious to hear about Pump's impact on the scale that Jupe sees. Prior to Pump, you probably had very, very fewer number of tokens launching per day. Along comes Pump that just sends it vertically.
Yeah.
Every USD there's probably tens of thousands of tokens that are getting launched, right? So there also means that the new pools, new token pairs for you to track. So
we have real-time tracker on all the pumps. But before that, we have an engine that just makes sure that the pool hits certain liquidity, then we only list it. But before this, pump fund came along, the alpha is very different. People want to trade token right at the time they launch. So we have to modify the engine to make sure that, we have to monitor whatever contract is on pump fund. If there's a new pool, we immediately list it. Yeah. Even listing it, right, we have to, but before that, we treat every single AMM as every single pool as a one requirement. Whether you get listed or you don't get listed. Now we have multiple requirements. If you're a pump fund token, it's being listed, but we don't do a lot of optimization on it. When I say that, it means, you can only do direct, but let's say you can do simple, pump fund to some high liquidity SOL USDC route so that you can buy pump fund with USDC. But we don't do it's because it's a new pump fund token, we put it into all the routing. Well, it doesn't really make sense, right? Even though it will just slow the routing engine now because it's basically a single pool on pump fund. Maybe with the block pool or Meteora and all this thing, right? But it's just two pools that doesn't really make sense to even route through, or being aggregated as part of the routing engine. But it makes sense for you to buy pump fund with USDC because any pump fund token USDC because it supports SOL only. But I do want to use USDC to buy any token that's on pump fund right now. So we do aggregation like that, but we don't put it into the whole aggregation of everything. Yeah. So now we have different, we call different group type based on what kind of tokens they are at, or what kind of pool they are at. Yeah.
Awesome. At what point was...
But this also go back to the same problem that we talk about, right? This has everything to do with sorry, I cut you off a little bit, but let me continue on the part. Yeah,
absolutely.
So this also go back to the thing, right? We can always find you the best price, but can this best price being executed on chain or not? It's a problem, right? Yeah, so these are the things that we have to deal with because high liquidity pool are obviously a lot safer to trade. Even normal, let's say LST to LST, right? You Jup SOL to Zito SOL. Sometimes you can route through a weird random pool that's low liquidity, and if I do LST to LST, I I'll be hoping that like execution rate is high, like the failure rate is almost close to zero. Like it's not like some crazy like tokens that will swing out of range, right? Even though it's like just soul to soul, like how crazy the price can be. But based on our experience, if we just throw any post into the routing, it will just route through like crazy routing to find you the best price that sometimes might be 10% better. But we know, like, if you're not like running like a high frequency, like arbitraging bot on Solana, there's no way you can get this price, even though at one particular timestamp, at one particular snapshot, we do see the best price that's 10% better. Yeah. So I think what I'm saying is like, now it's multi-phases problems, like more than just price.
Right.
In a way, this is almost like, for example, when, in the initial days of Google, as long as you're showing something that has a good amount, that's minimally relevant to whatever keyword that your search is for, but then people started, doing all this SEO optimization and cannibalizing other keywords so that theirs appear higher. But still, as far as the user is concerned, in order for them to have a good user experience, the relevance has to be very, very high. Right? And also naturally the user behavior, what they expect out of the product keeps going up as you have more users. So it's kind of very, very interesting to see the breadth of the things that you need to worry about in a product that, when you are like, when you're at the vertical scale.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah.
So you mentioned like the pump how pump, was like it was like a lot of tokens, so very different scale to what you had to do, right? I'm curious to also you guys recently launched ape.pro, so I'm curious to hear more about the transition. Like, how did you guys arrive at ape.pro? What was the product decision behind it?
Yeah, so it's actually very simple. People come to Jupiter with their own custody wallet, right? It's a very common thing, right? It's like, okay, you have Phantom wallet, you have Soulflare wallet, now you have the Jupiter wallet as well, like the mobile apps. You come to it, your custody is on your own, then you just do the swap, right? It's very easy. Sometimes you will come and buy like some, like some mint tokens that mostly graduating. But then Pump Fund came along, right? The game changed a little bit. Like people don't mind paying like bots, like 1% fees, as long as they are guaranteed the executing price that they want, and they don't mind coming in and out tokens fast, right? These are the things we can find the pool for you, but at the same time, it's tough for us to really put 20% slippage on our UI. You know what I mean? Like we need to protect the user by not setting 20%. And we cannot say that, okay, everything will be transmitting on Zito, and like everything is just like, we have your wallet, we can just, sign the transaction for you. For this kind of trading experience, right, you seriously just want it to be fast. Like really fast, and you don't mind paying 1% fees. You don't mind doing 20% slippage. All right, so then we realized there's like this big market that like, people are doing that we are not very good at. I think it's also good that like we went into it, launched App Pro. I think the data that we collect always been, I think it's very helpful for us to optimize the routing engine as well, to do what I call the best executing price. Not just not just the best price, but the best way to land your transaction, the best priority fee, the best way to protect you from ABV, the best way to do the slippage for you. Yes.
Very cool. So what you're saying is ape.pro lets you guys are doing custody, and people don't have their own private keys or wallets.
Yes. Yeah.
Would love to know, how did you build this private key management?
Yeah. Like we know we are not the expert to it. Like, we actually pay someone. Like, we use Web3 off to do it. But like if you look into it, right, a lot of these people just like, like they don't tell you how they do it. It's kind of scary.
Right.
Yeah. That's one thing that we make sure that from day one, say, okay, like we are not the expert on it. Like we are not doing the claim that like we can help you to secure the wallet key very securely. That's why we reach out to our providers. I kind of say, okay, these are the things that we need. Like, can you guys help us with it? Then I'm like, yes. Yeah.
Got it. Very cool.
Awesome.
Sheikh mentioned initially you were in the initial YC batch with Stripe. Is that true?
Yeah. Yes. That was a long time ago. Yeah. My background. I was in YC 2009. When PG, everyone was still there. Stripe, the co-founder was, Stripe was in my batch, summer 2009. Mixed panel as well. So here, mixed panel. I think who else back in the batch that people will still remember. I would say like mixed panel is still around, and like also Stripe is still around. That people remember. Yeah. Then the company I work at eventually get bought out by Sam, the current CEO of OpenAI. So Sam was my boss for a little bit, for like a year. Then I couldn't get my visa, but I was an international student in US. Then I have to like go back to college. I went back to college, finished out my college, then came back out to the Bay Area, started another company. The company is still running right now. My roommate started it. I was just helping him out. Then, like two of us, the company grew to like now I think it's like 100 something people. He's still running it. I left right around the Series A. I was there for the seed round, then Series A. The last round valuations was like 1.5 billion. They raised 150 million for it. Yeah.
That's very cool. Do you think there's some network effects that come from, being in YC09? Is it motivation, people that, lead to such heavy outcomes over like a span of a decade?
I don't know. It's more than a decade right now. It's like 22. I think I started Y53. Yeah, 15 years, 23. Now I'm like 27, 28. Yeah, 15 years. Yeah. And I would say like back then it's very difficult because, internet, there's internet, but there's not much content as what it is today, right? Now even crazier. You have ChatGPT, you have like, cloud, like, who can just do everything, tell you everything. Like the chance of using Google is even harder. Like you basically have like this, you basically have PG next to you telling you, like, you can just ask any question that you want, like
right.
You can even like tell ChatGPT, it's like, can you read through all the PG essay? Like do this personality and tell me like how, advise me on problems, right? Like you can do things like that. Back then, it's like, startup is a very opaque world, right? It's like, okay, what does it even mean to start the tech company? Other than like you hear Booker, you hear all these things, like everything's happening in Silicon Valley, like you just have no idea. So YC definitely helps open the door, like, to realize that, like, okay, all these things are just people solving problems, with technology, engineering, like stuff like that. Yeah.
Very cool.
What pulled you into crypto, like from being YC in 09 to crypto with like I think 2020 or 2021? Like what pulled you into crypto? I think rather than, I'm just guessing.
A lot of things that's funny, right? Back then, we were in YC, we would get like a bunch of like server credits for free from the company. So it's like, like 09 is when the Bitcoin white paper came out. So but a lot of people were just like, okay, fuck it, just like, with free credits, might as well just run a miner on the server and stuff like that. Yeah. So that's like, we are lucky at the time, right? 09, my YC batch is exactly when the Bitcoin paper came out. Especially you're in, Silicon Valley, you're like in computer science, you're in like, engineering. It's like, that's what everyone's talking about. Like if you're in a computer science school, like you walk around, it's like, like, have you seen this Bitcoin paper? It's talking about money that like, using all this like decentralized way of like doing stuff, like, making sure that no one can own. Like you have to like pay to like, you have to use CPU to mine the token. Like most of the people I know is running the miner program on their CPU, like, on their laptops, like see where, you could still get Bitcoin, like just even running on your laptop back then. So it's like, it was like a thing for me. That's how I got to it. Like, I would say like first of all, it's just lucky because I was in college. I was in the Bay Area when the Bitcoin white paper came out. So everyone was talking about it. Then after that, obviously, it's like when you really get into it, right? You like everyone's like, oh, like this is very cool. You can build stuff on it. like it's internet money and like programmable money. And then you look at it, it's like fuck, there's like nothing you could build on Bitcoin. It's like it's a very cool idea. Like you it wasn't like a simple thing you want to build. Have to go through like all these complex like things, right? Then after that we were like, okay, fuck it. There's nothing I could do. Then obviously Ethereum came along like for 2015 or something like that. Then everyone's like, fuck. Like it's actually finally a programmable money that you can actually build on. Then I started playing with Ethereum, but obviously same thing as well. I was just happened to be in San Francisco. Coinbase was there, everyone was there. And like I used do Ruby on Rails, which is basically the same language that Coinbase was built on. So like I get a lot like chance to talk to a lot of people there because of the Ruby stuff. There's like a lot of close friends who used to work there. Like I remember like Ethereum was like doing a weekend class at Coinbase to teach people how to do Ethereum, programming. Like I signed up for it. It was a 10 class, but the thing is I was like, okay, like I think this this guy probably not like I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. Anyway, so I decided not to go for the weekend. But I remember there are opportunity like this all over the Bay Area. Like you will go into a random meet up to like people talk about like crypto stuff. So it's very easy to get used to, right? That was like 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018. Then I came back to Malaysia trying to like, after I left the Bay Area, came back to Malaysia trying to like figure out, okay, like what can I actually do with crypto? It took me 2 years. Finally, I stumbled upon Solana. It was like, okay, I want to learn, Ruby is kind of boring to me. EVM is like fun, but the Solidity is like, it's like Solidity is not, just another JavaScript. Like, I was like, okay, this thing's using Rust. I've been telling me myself that I want to learn Rust for the longest time. And like I was like, okay, now is the fine, like a really good opportunity for me to do Rust on Solana. That's how, yeah. Then Meow and I know each other since the Bay Area times, like the things like 2010 until now, it's like 15 years. Then he just asked me, yo, like you want to build on Solana? I was like, yeah, let's do something together. And this programming language sounds cool. I really want to learn it as well. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I think it's always interesting to see how Rust is kind of the gateway drug to Solana. Yeah, for me also it was a very simple story. I was programming in Rust, and then I saw, oh, there's actually something that I know that I could use here. Let's not get it all.
Yeah, exactly.
Very cool. See if you have more questions. Sheikh, do you have more questions?
No, I think we are good. And we are also cutting close to time. Thank you so much for joining, Siong. We thoroughly trying having you on the podcast. So it's been an absolute pleasure, and I think this will turn out to be very well. I hope.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think, yeah, I'm looking for, last, like, if you give me like a 10 second to share it, like, I'm looking at, like, we are trying to build like we have different work group, right? We have the outlet work group to handle our content. We have the co-working group to handle all the community stuff. I'm looking at to start the developer relationship work group. So basically, like, like a core work group of maybe 2-3 engineers or like, outreach people who can really like, educate more engineers. It doesn't have to be like pure Jupyter stuff. It can be Solana stuff as well. But basically just to activate more people start trading on Jupyter and also start using Solana as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think we'll definitely get a lot of good inbounds from the podcast. And also, I think as the podcast goes out, right, we will make sure to add like a JD or some kind of a written description of the work group so that people have like a strong CTA to click on.
Yeah, and also like, when it's ready, let me know so that I can share with the work group as well so that they can push it out as well.
Awesome.
That'd be great.
Cool. Thank you.
Great, thanks. So nice to meet you. Have a good day.
So nice to meet you. Have a good day. Bye. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.